Hey folks, Gary Monroe here. Good to be back with you in design thinking. I'm here to introduce very briefly your final project, the topic of your final design project. So you have a sense of where things are going, what you should be in the back of your mind sort of thinking about as you complete coursework and complete the modules. So I'm here to share a little bit about where we're headed over the next just shy of 3 weeks. As you're probably a little bit into the modules by this point. You've done a little bit of learning. You're introduced to the basic ideas of design thinking. You're probably thinking, how are we going to apply this remotely? How can this be used in a time of crisis to solve major problems? And that's sort of the sort of mindset we like to have at Hiram College. How can we do things in the community ethically to deliver value, beyond sort of just commodification and so forth, building a better mop or a better widget. And so what we want to do is respond to the moment. This is a really interesting time, unprecedented in modern history with the pandemic. And so we're trying to think about a problem that's sort of universal, that we could muster our collective intelligence and creativity and work towards. And Professor Ryan and I were talking about it. It seems like the most universal topic we could think of that is both accessible and general is dining, outdoor or eating outside, pandemic-induced constraints on the restaurant and food industry. And so it's obviously winter, and people can't gather indoors very well to share a meal. And so there is a lot of people sort of scrambling to figure out, how do we keep this major part of the economy and indeed our community and culture alive while keeping people safe? And so I just wanted to, and so we'll be doing that in this course, thinking about, what are some creative, innovative ways of solving these problems? It's just mind-boggling to think about how important the restaurant and food industry is to the U.S. economy. It's almost $900 billion projected sales just this year in 2020. They employ a major, they're a major employer in the workforce, and it's a growing space. It's also a place that is a doorway into the middle class. It's a place where people often start a small business and they develop independence and so forth, much like real estate. And it's a sector of the economy that's particularly accessible to people at all levels and from all communities and backgrounds. It's a particularly large employer of diverse and minority populations. And yet it's right now faced with an existential crisis. We've got small businesses closing by the day because of the pandemic. And actually just today I heard about a place up in Kent that I frequent called the Kent Cheesemonger. And so is a guy who focuses on cheese and wine. And they had to close. And even though my partner and I have been trying to frequent them throughout the pandemic, do our weekly haul of craft cheeses, it hasn't kept him afloat. And so it's sad, because it was sort of, that place was a real high point, I think, of taste, and a place we certainly enjoyed here in Kent. And so, what could we offer these folks? That's the big question. And I'm sure we can come up with a number of the variety of solutions to this issue. And so you can take this in a lot of different directions. It's worth ultimately 15% of your final grade. This is sort of this will be your final exam. You'll be preparing a presentation on this. It'll be composed of coursework. As you complete the modules, you'll be focusing your work oftentimes on this issue. So while the module might say, hey, go and do this visualization exercise, or go do this empathize exercise, you have freedom to kind of direct that in the area in which you see fit. And then over time, you're going to pull from those various activities and create a presentation of what you've learned, insights you've gained, and so forth. You'd combine that with some reflection on how what you've learned through the course, and you can compile that into a video, either a voiceover PowerPoint slides, kind of like what I'm doing now, or a video of yourself presenting something, taking us through the entire design, taking us a walk through the design process that you've completed through the course for exploring ideas and so forth, finally getting a picture idea. And you're going to offer and receive feedback. Everyone's going to show these. You're going to go watch some peers, and you're going to participate that way. You're going to want to focus your topic on a particular subsector of the food industry. So it's a huge space, as I mentioned. You've got restaurants at all these different levels, fast food to fine dining to places like the Kent Cheesemonger. You've got buffets. You've got our, of course, infamous or famous, it's up to you, however you want to frame it. I'm actually a big fan of our campus dining, the dining hall on campus. Bistro, weddings, catering, private chefs, grocery, maybe not quite grocery stores, but you get the food trucks. And so you sort of get the idea that there's this huge range of restaurants and food industry areas where people are now struggling to find solutions, connect with customers. You've got home dining going on. What has been your experience with dining? What unmet needs, as we get into empathize, are no longer being met? What are people really craving when they go dining, and what sort of new constraints are on? All these are questions you're going to be addressing. And so while we might speak generally about a number of them, it's going to be your job, kind of like what we do in a case study where we go deep on a particular topic to explore and offer solutions, testing and so forth, and assessing. So this is just a brief introduction into that project, and there will be much more to come, but we want to get you thinking about how each of these activities are going to connect over time. Now, they might not all be used. All your little ePortfolio blogs and activities, process journal work, not everything's going to end up in this presentation or your final project, but you're going to want to start thinking about curating and starting to sharpen those towards that end. In a nutshell, that's an overview and an introduction into your final project. Thank you.